Good Erev Shabbos, this is Rabbi Ya'akov Trump, and I wanted to take a moment to address a question which has been asked by many, and even those who don't ask it kind of wonder it, and perhaps even if they don't articulate it, it's a question we have, and that is, what is the deal with Mincha on Erev Shabbos? How does Mincha on Erev Shabbos operate? Why do we have these three different minyanim? Why is that some people are somewhat concerned about the middle one? How is this working? How is it set up? So I'd like to take a little bit of a journey into the back end. The way that our Talabam has set this up for many, many years in the correct halachic fashion, so we can understand why we do what we do. Let's take a little bit of a journey into understanding this. First question, when can we say Mincha on a regular day? Forget Erev Shabbos. When can we say Mincha until on a regular day? Now, intuitively, we'd answer, well, until sunset. That may be correct, but that's one option. The Mishnah actually tells us this is a matter of debate. The Mishnah in Brachos, Chav Zayin and Aleph, tells us that there's a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim as to when one can say Mincha until. This debate is actually focused around even the Korban Tamid Shel Ben Harbaim, the way the Korban that would be brought every afternoon in the Beis Hamikdash would be brought until, and that debate reflects itself in our halacha as to when we can say Mincha. So what is the debate? Rabbi Yehuda actually says you can only say it until Plag HaMincha, which literally means half of Mincha. The Chachamim say that one can say it until Laila, until nightfall. So what does that Plag HaMincha mean? In order to understand that, we just need to take a step backwards to understand how hours work in halachic reality. Hours are not necessarily 60 minutes. In fact, 60 minutes would be the halachic hour only on the equinox, the two equinoxes, when the day and the night are equal. However, the halachic hours of the day are measured when you take the amount of time between sunrise and sunset and divide that into 12 sections, which means in the winter months, those sha'os zmanios, those relative hours are much shorter than 60 minutes, and in the summer, which is where we are, those hours become longer than 60 minutes. And that changes every day because, as you notice, we'll see that sunrise and sunset are fluctuating outwards from each other or inwards towards each other. So, what is Plag HaMincha? Well, optimal time to daven Mincha is what's called Mincha Katana, which is from after the time of 2.5 relative hours from the end of the day. Okay? That means to say at 9.5 hours of relative hours into the day. Plag HaMincha is a time between that and sunset, which is essentially 1.25 halachic hours from the end of the day. So Rabbi Yehuda essentially says that we can daven Mincha up till that point, even though the sun is not set. That's the end of the time of davening Mincha, and essentially the beginning of the time one can daven Mariv. Whereas the Chachamim understand that in fact it's sunset which draws that line. Before sunset one can daven Mincha up till, and after sunset one can daven Mariv from there onwards. Just to appreciate that. Which means there's a debate as to when we draw the line between essentially day A and day B regarding Tfilas Mincha and Mariv. Is it Plag HaMincha, a relative hour and a quarter before the end of the day, or is it at the sunset itself? How do we paskin? And what's curious about this machlokes is it was never resolved. In fact, the Gemara says, "Ovid kamar ovid, ovid kamar ovid," that we can do like either one. However, the Shulchan Aruch makes it very clear, based on the Rishonim, that that's not mean to say that a person can flip-flop. A person has to make a choice as to which of those opinions they follow, and follow that their entire life, or at least seasons or years, according to some poskim. Which means to say that if a person is going to daven Mincha before sunset and daven Mariv after sunset using the divider of the Chachamim, they should be doing that all the time, 7 days a week and 365 days of a year. Whereas if a person is going to be davening a Plag Mincha, which means to say they're going to be davening Mincha before the 1.25 hour before the end of the day, and Mariv right afterwards, even though it's still light outside, if one wants to do that, one has to do that all the time. So it would be inept for a person just to drop by in a Plag minyan just one day here and there. That is not correct. The exception to that rule is Erev Shabbos. The Rambam already says, the Beis Yosef quotes this, although there are dissenting opinions, there is an accepted opinion that on an Erev Shabbos, even if we were to daven Mincha and Mariv around the zone of Shkia, of sunset, not Plag HaMincha as the end of the day, like Rabbi Yehuda, even if we were to do the sunset as the red line during the week, on an Erev Shabbos we can bring Shabbos in early and use Plag HaMincha as that line, as the divider between day and night, like Rabbi Yehuda. Means that's the only flip-flopping we're allowed to do is in honor of Shabbos on an Erev Shabbos. Okay, where we draw that line between Mincha and Maariv is the critical question. We usually go like the Chachamim, and on Erev Shabbos we can sometimes go like Rabbi Yehuda as an aspect of Tosefes Shabbos, as bringing Shabbos in early. So, how does that work exactly? So, if you look at the relative hours of the day, so we have calendars in the shul which we use. So, Plag HaMincha, when is Plag HaMincha? So it happens to be there's one further debate which affects and impacts the way that we do things. And that is the Vilna Gaon measures the relative hours in the day between sunrise and sunset. Divide that into 12 and you have your relative hours of the day. However, the Magen Avram views the relative hours of the day from Alois HaShachar, 72 minutes before sunrise, and till Tseis, which is 72 minutes after sunset, which means he's measuring a much larger scope. That's why, for an example, as of today, May 7th, a Shah Zmani, a relative hour of the day according to the Vilna Gaon, is 71 minutes, because remember we're getting to the midsummer, and according to the Magen Avram is 83 minutes, which means that therefore there's going to be two Plag HaMinchas, depending on if we follow the Vilna Gaon's sunrise to sunset measurement, or the Magen Avram's Alois HaShachar dawn till stars out measurement of relative hours. So as an example today, the Plag HaMincha of the Vilna Gaon is just after 6:29 p.m. That's an hour and a quarter relative hours, essentially that 71 minutes plus another half of that before the end of the day. That's when we will be able to daven Mincha. That's we'll say the earliest time you can accept Shabbos. And the Magen Avram's Plag would be at 7:25 and change. That's measuring it from dawn till stars out. So how do we do it? What we do is we have minchas which are populated around those three zmanim. The Plag HaMincha of the Vilna Gaon, so let's say today is 6:28 is the Plag HaMincha of the Vilna Gaon. So we make mincha around 20 minutes, 25 minutes before then, so that we can daven mincha before that line and daven Maariv after that line. For the Magen Avram's perspective, that it's 7:25 and change, we have mincha around 20 minutes beforehand, so we daven mincha before that Plag HaMincha and Maariv after that Plag HaMincha. And then finally, what some people mistakenly call late Shabbos. There's no such thing as late Shabbos. You can't take Shabbos in late. It's called Zman. It means the time that actually sunset happens. That today candle lighting is at 7:39, and in that frame of reference, we daven mincha 10 minutes before Shkia, which is about 7:47 today, in order to finish mincha before sunset and then start Maariv at a time which is after that line. So the question just is where we put that dividing line. We should not confuse our middle mincha with a commonly mistaken practice, which is what's called Tartei Desasre. One is not allowed to daven mincha after Plag HaMincha and daven Maariv before sunset, because you're putting essentially the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim together. You're going like Rabbi Yehuda that you can daven the Chachamim, you can daven mincha after Plag HaMincha. You're davening like Rabbi Yehuda Maariv, you can daven Maariv before sunset. We are not allowed to do that. There are opinions, there's one or two opinions which are making on an Erev Shabbos, but generally speaking we don't do that. That's why you'll notice even our middle mincha fluctuates. It's not 7 o'clock all the way through the summer. It fluctuates depending on the plug of the Magen Avram. That's important to understand and to appreciate the calculations and the significance of every zman that we have on an Erev Shabbos. I hope this makes it a little bit clearer as to why we do what we do, how much attention to detail that we have in our lives, that Baruch Hashem, that we frame our lives in a halachic reality as we bring in Shabbos. Be'ezras Hashem haba alenu l'tova. It should be a healthy and wonderful Shabbos. Have a wonderful and meaningful one.